Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to give my advice on how I became a homeowner at 25 years old. And I purchased a house in March 2021 in the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex here in Texas. All right, so if you go on Rocket Mortgage, they have a step-by-step process on how to purchase a home in 2023. Essentially, you're going to need your past 2 years tax returns to show how much income you made in the past 2 years. They're going to look at your debt to income ratio. So, how much student loan debt you have, how much auto loan debt, credit card debt, or other debts you have. And then they're going to look at your credit score. And once they have all that information, you'll get a pre-approval letter that'll show how much home price you're approved for. So, if you make 50,000, you can get pre-approved depending on the interest rates and the debt to income ratio. It could be 230,000, it could be 300,000. It just depends on the interest rates and your debt to income ratio. And types of mortgages, there's a conventional mortgage, fixed rate mortgage, adjustable rate mortgage, and then there's government backed loans. So for my 13 advice, I would say step number one, you can move to a state with a lower cost of living because even if you make over $100,000, states like California, Washington State, New York, New Jersey, Hawaii, because of the high cost of living, $100,000 salary is not going to get you that far in those states. You have to make 150,000 and up in salary. So my first step would be to move to a state with a lower cost of living. For example, in 2017, I lived in Massachusetts. Then, after living there for 10 years, the housing costs were so high, I moved back to Arizona. So I went to college at Arizona State University. And my 3 years in Arizona, I saved a lot of money because it was lower housing costs. And then I moved to Texas in March 2020. So I was able to save a lot of money. And then the houses were affordable during that COVID pandemic time because interest rates were at 3%. And then by the time I started looking for a house in January 2021, the interest rates were less than 3%. They were in the 2 percentile. So that helped me a lot when I was looking to buy a house. My second tip of advice, I would say request an increase in salary at your job. Go to your employer, display your skills and all the value that you provide to them as a reason why you should get an increase in salary. If they decline your increase in salary, apply for jobs at other companies. Just because once one employer tells you no, if you put your name in the hat, another employer out there can see your value and can offer you a higher salary. Third tip, I would say find roommates to lower your housing expenses. When I was in Massachusetts, my rent was about $1,000 a month in an apartment, or not an apartment, it was a townhouse with other tenants. And when I went to Arizona, I was living in the Tempe, Arizona area. So that's next to the Arizona State University Tempe campus. I lived with three other ASU students in a four-bedroom house. So my rent was $400, and we split the utilities and forts among the four people that were living in the house. So 3 years of living in that environment allowed me to save up to over $20,000. And then when I got a promotion at my job to move from Tempe, Arizona to Fort Worth, Texas, I got an $8,000 relocation bonus. After taxes, that was $6,000. So now, March 2020, I came in with $26,000 in my bank account. And because of all the COVID lockdowns from March 2020 to early 2021, I was able to save an additional $9,000 because I wasn't going out at all. I was kind of just working from home and being in my apartment and then just going outside just to run or to exercise. or to visit family occasionally. So in those 10 months from March 2020 to January 2021, I was able to save an additional $9,000. So that led me to having $35,000 in my bank account, which is really good when you're trying to look for a home because you're going to do a down payment of 3%. Depending on the loan you get, it can be 3%, 5%. In some cases, you're going to have to put down 20%. So I would say, in my opinion, at least have $35,000 saved up in your bank account. The fifth tip I have is no car payments. Um, the reason is you want your debt to income ratio to be low. You want your debts to be as low as possible. And having an auto loan payment will make it very difficult to get pre-approved for a mortgage. So by having no car payment, I was more flexible with my expenses because the average car payment in America, I believe last time I saw in the news, they said for a new car it was about $700 a month, and for a used car it was $500 a month. So when you multiply 500 times 12, that's $6,000 in savings. Or if it was a newer car, over $8,000 in savings a year. And because I was driving an older car from 1999, it was a Toyota Tacoma at the time. My car insurance was only $180 for 6 months, so I was paying $30 a month in car insurance, which is different compared to some of my other coworkers. They had cars from the 2015 to 2021 at the time, and their car insurance payments were about $120 to up to $200 a month. So easily I was saving $600 to $700 a month because I was driving an older car. I didn't have a car payment and my car insurance was lower because it was a car that was older than 20 years. So do your best to keep your car payment as low as possible, I would say. And for my next tip of advice, have a year's worth of savings in your bank account because when you make that big down payment, you have to take into account, okay, I just made like a $10,000 to $20,000 down payment on a house, and I still have to buy appliances, furniture, home furnishings, any outdoor tools, equipment, a storage shed, uh, vanity, silverware, to get your house, to fill your house with all the items you need for home living expenses, you're looking at an additional ten to $15,000 on top of what you spend on your down payment. So I would say have a year's worth of savings in your bank account if you can. The next tip I have is skip eating at restaurants for a year. Obviously, my situation with the COVID lockdown, that was very easy because restaurants were closed at the time. They just had the carry out orders, but I didn't even eat at any restaurants at all for a year. So I saved a lot of money. I was just eating groceries at home in my apartment at the time. The next tip I have is sacrifice going to concerts and live sporting events for a year. If your goal is to buy a house, realize that those artists or those sports teams that you're a fan of, they can wait till next year or 2 years from now. Because when you want to buy a house, you have to be very disciplined with every dollar that you spend. Because each dollar you spend to a concert or a sporting event, that's $1 less that you have towards the down payment of your house. The ninth tip I have is skip dating for a year. Dating is very expensive. I would say as a man, you want to be a provider for your significant other, for your future partner. So I would say once you have your house, dating is much easier because when you have an apartment, your dating prospects are not as high as when you introduce yourself as a homeowner versus if you introduce yourself as a tenant of an apartment. You want to separate yourself from the pack. The 10th step, eat groceries at home. Eating out is very expensive. Skip DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, any delivering food delivery services. Just strictly eat groceries at home. You're going to save a lot of money. Number 11, save money by cutting expenses as much as possible. So any unnecessary expenses like beauty or grooming, like if you're a person that likes to get massages or go to the spa, or if you're a guy that gets haircuts every 2 weeks, just skip haircuts every 2 weeks, maybe get one every 3 to 4 months. Just any unnecessary expenses, streaming services, uh, entertainment options. Just cut, if you cut all those expenses and just sacrifice for a year or two, you'll realize how much money you can save up for your house. Number 12, carpool to work. If you have coworkers that live near you, if you want to save on gas expenses, just take turns driving to work. Like one week, you carpool, they carpool with you, and then the next week you carpool with them. And my 13th tip advice, I would say take local transportation. So, bus, train, metro when you can. So just avoid Uber and Lyft as possible, because Uber and Lyft can be very expensive if you take it regularly or every weekly. It's much cheaper if there's a local transportation available in your area. So US mortgage rates, according to Freddie Mac, were at a 21-year high in about August 2023. Um, the 6.54% mortgage rate at that time in August 2023 was the same as it was in 2002. If you notice from that graph in 2008, when the housing market crashed and people started losing their houses, interest rates started to go down, and then it kind of stayed around the 4% mark. You can see in the graph from about 2012 to about 2021. And then once everyone started buying houses in 2021, you'd see the mortgage rates steadily increase in 2022, and they continue to increase throughout 2023. Uh, According to Freddie Mac's website, mortgage interest rates as of November 16, 2023 is for a 30-year fixed mortgage rate is 7.44%, 15-year fixed mortgage rate is 6.76%. The factors that are affecting the mortgage rates is inflation, rate of economic growth, Federal Reserve monetary policy, the bond market, and housing market conditions. The reason, guys, that you want to pay very important to the interest rate when you're looking for a home. If you look at this example up top in 2021 with a 30-year fixed mortgage rate at 2.96% interest rate, if your loan amount was almost $400,000, the total interest you would pay is $204,181, whereas um, this year's interest rates, when it was 7.7% a month ago, I believe, if you took out that same loan amount of almost 400,000, 399,999, the total interest you will pay with 7.7% interest rate is going to be $627,530. That's 157% of the home price over 30 years. So you look at the total cost of loan over $1 million, $27,529, versus when the interest rates were 2.96%, you saw that the savings are about 400,000, $23,000, just because you bought the home 2 years later. It's going to cost you more than double of what the house is worth, almost triple of the home selling price. That's why the interest rate, looking at what the interest rate is very important when you're looking to buy a home. Now, the example from Smart Asset says, how do mortgage interest rates affect payment amounts? So with this example of 3%, 4%, 5%, we see the amount paid, how the interest rates are different. With a 3% on a $200,000 principal, the interest rate is 103,555. With 4%, it's about $143,739. With 5%, it's $186,512. So as you see, for a principal of $200,000, with each additional percent interest rate, it's about an extra $40,000 to $43,000 difference. So always look at the interest rate when you're shopping for a home. And then how higher interest rates increase the cost of a 30-year home loan. These are three different examples with a $250,000 home, a $500,000 home, and a $750,000 home. As you notice, when the interest rates were 6% over a year ago, you're going to pay significantly more for that home than you were back in 2020 and early 2021 when the interest rates were just at 3%. And then you look at the pros and cons of renting a home versus owning a home. With renting a home, the one that stands out is the landlord can decide to raise the rent after a year, or he can decide to sell the property. So then you have to go look for another home versus when you're owning a home, you build equity, and by the time a 30-year difference, once you finish paying off the loan, the home is yours and you can sell the home, and the homes generally appreciate over time, so you can make a profit once you decide to sell the home. Versus when you rent a home, you have zero equity, it's just throwing money down the drain. You don't own any property. So in my opinion, owning a home is 100% better than renting a home. And then if you look at the chart on the right side, buying versus renting in America, this is from samples from the 1970s. So as you see throughout the decades, costing to buy a house was more expensive the majority of the time. Then in 1994, costing to buy a home and renting a home were about the same price. And in 2002, to buying a house was way more expensive than renting. Then around 2010, they were about the same. And then once the housing market crashed, it was cheaper to buy a house versus renting a home. And then the COVID pandemic in early 2020 to early 2021, buying a house was cheaper than renting a home. And now in November 2023, you can see it's like an $800 difference, cost to buy a house versus cost to rent a house. So right now in America, it's better to rent a home because buying a home is very expensive with today's current interest rates at over 7%. And then when I bought my house, the purchase price was 215,000. That was the cost of the home. I put down $10,500. My mortgage interest rate in March 2021 was 2.25%. I didn't pay any closing costs because the mortgage lender I applied for their first time home buyers program grant. So that helped save me a lot of money because sometimes closing costs can be over $10,000 depending on the final price of the home. I didn't have no private mortgage insurance because I had a conventional loan with my mortgage lender. The private mortgage insurance, PMI, it varies from lender to lender. Be sure to do your research and shop around when you are in that process of buying a home because having no private mortgage insurance, that's saving me a lot of money in my mortgage payment. So when I first bought the house in 2021, it was a new build house and my mortgage payment was 1,378 a month. My homeowner's insurance for the year was $1,260. Because it was a new build home, escrow was $5,000 because they didn't have the property tax rate yet. So that was just the escrow amount that I had to pay throughout 12 months. And then in 2022, my mortgage payment went down to 1,050 a month. My homeowner's insurance increased to $1,560 for the year, and my property taxes was $1,963 because now they were taxing the house, just the land, since it was a new build house. And then in 2023, now that the county was taxing the house completely built, that's why my mortgage payment increased to 1,630 a month. And my homeowner's insurance, because the property appreciated in value year over year, it went up to 1,775 for the year. And my property taxes were about $4,411. So because my property taxes increased, that's why my mortgage payment went up to 1,630 a month, about $580 more than my 2022 mortgage payment. I had a $40,000 homestead exemption on my house, so my property taxes were supposed to be $5,200, but because of the $40,000 homestead exemption, my property taxes were lowered to $4,400. And then if you look at the homestead exemptions, they're not available in every state. So whichever state you decide to buy a house in, look up in your county to see if there's homestead exemptions available. So for this example, if your house is appraised by the county that you live in at $300,000 with a $40,000 exemption, you pay school taxes as if your house was only worth $260,000. So in that example, you would save $414 a year in property taxes. This past election, November 7th, 2023, here in Texas, the voters they passed Proposition number 4. So the homestead exemption for homeowners increased from 40,000 to $100,000, and I got notification from the my county tax office that with this $100,000 homestead exemption, my property taxes will decrease from $4,411 to about a little over $3,500. So damn near $900 in property tax savings, thanks to the voters in Texas that voted to pass this proposition. So that was my example on how I was able to buy a house at 25 years old. It's going to take sacrifices. Just be very disciplined. Try to increase your salary as high as possible. Switch jobs year over year. If you're not getting an adequate raise because inflation is at 7%, if your employer only gives you a 2% or 3% salary increase, they're effectively giving you a pay cut because of inflation is at 7%. So try to switch jobs year over year and try to get just increase your salary. And yeah, you just got to make sacrifices and set a goal that, hey, I want to become a homeowner, and then follow steps online. Rocket Mortgage has lots of advice, and other mortgage lenders. Website I like to use is NerdWallet or Investopedia. They give a lot of great financial advice, and just do your best. Have a goal in mind. Have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. And if you have a plan that you want to buy a house, you'll be very successful at accomplishing your goal. And then be sure to follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like this video, leave a comment about your home buying experience. And then if you want to follow me on social media, on Instagram, it's Obi-Wan Texas. On Twitter, same name, Obi-Wan Texas. Right now, my goal is to get 1,000 subscribers. So if you like this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching my video. Have a great day, everyone. Peace.